Okay, leather goods industrial engineer.
Hmm.
I gotta admit, when you sent this RoleCatcher info over, I was picturing like, I don't know, fancy workshops, people hand stitching saddles.
Right.
But this is way more high tech than I expected.
It is a very interesting blend of old craftsmanship and very new technology.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a booming industry right now.
You mentioned that demand is through the roof.
Far.
So let's cut to the chase.
Okay.
Does high demand actually equal good money in this field?
It can, but it's not as simple as just supply and demand.
Okay.
There's a lot of people out there who get into this thinking leather goods, luxury brands, big bucks.
Right.
But the real earning potential, I think, comes with specialization.
So you're saying it's not just about being a gray industrial engineer, it's about being the expert in something like sustainable leather processing or high-end handbag production.
Exactly. Niche expertise. That's where you can really excel, especially later in your career.
Okay.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's
Yeah.
break it down.
Yeah.
What does a leather goods industrial engineer actually do?
Let's unpack that.
Okay.
Looking at the what they do section, a big part of the job is optimizing production.
It is.
But how is that different for leather goods versus, say, making smartphones?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Because unlike mass-produced electronics, leather goods have this handmade element to them.
Okay.
You're dealing with natural materials and textures, and often there's just a higher expectation of quality.
Yeah. A scratch on an iPhone screen is one thing, but a scratch on a $5,000 leather handbag is a
Exactly.
disaster.
Right.
How does an industrial engineer even approach optimization in that environment?
It requires a very delicate balance.
Okay.
I mean, you might use data analysis to streamline how you cut the nether hides
Right.
because you don't want to waste any of that expensive material.
Right.
But then on the other hand, you might be working with a team of really skilled artisans who are hand stitching.
Okay.
And you need to figure out how to improve their ergonomics without compromising the detail.
So it's not just about robots and assembly lines. There's a real human element to it.
Absolutely. And that's where that 57% judgment that we saw in the materials comes into play.
57% judgment, is that a passing grade? I'm kidding, but seriously, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it means that you're making decisions with incomplete information a lot of the time. Can I automate this stitching pattern without making it look like a machine did it?
Right.
Do we invest in a new laser cutter? Or can we train our craftspeople on a more efficient hand-cutting technique?
Interesting.
So these are all judgment calls, and you need to have a very good understanding of not just the technical processes, but also like the art of it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of clarifies what they do, but I'm curious about the where.
Okay.
Because when I hear factory, I think giant noisy space.
Sure.
Is that the reality for most leather goods manufacturers?
It's a real mixed bag. You see everything.
Okay.
You have your high-tech factories with all the computer-controlled cutting machines and the automated assembly lines.
Right.
But then on the other hand, you have your smaller workshops,
Mm.
and they still value craftsmanship. And they're only using a few specialized machines for very specific tasks.
So depending on the company and the product,
Mhm.
the work environment could be anything from sleek and modern to something more traditional and hands-on.
Exactly. And that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at different companies to work for.
Right.
Do you like a fast-paced, technology-driven environment? Or do you prefer working in a small team and being really hands-on?
It's almost like choosing your adventure, but in this case, it's choosing your ideal factory floor.
Yes.
And speaking of collaboration, I always like to look at the typical interactions section of a job description.
Sure.
Who are leather goods industrial engineers talking to all day?
It's a mix of personalities.
Okay.
You're working with designers to take their creative vision and turn it into something that can actually be manufactured. And then you're collaborating with craftspeople to figure out how to actually make those products.
So you're like a bridge between the design studio and the factory floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't forget about the suppliers.
Oh, right.
You're working with them, you're negotiating prices.
Okay, so we're already seeing a theme here. Communication is huge.
Yes, definitely. And not just communication, but active listening
Yeah.
is so important.
Right.
Remember, you're working with craftspeople that have years, sometimes generations of experience.
Wow.
They have so much knowledge, but it might not always be expressed in engineering terms.
So it's about understanding their perspective and finding ways to blend those traditional techniques with modern optimization.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've established that being a leather goods industrial engineer is about a lot more than just numbers and spreadsheets. dealing with people materials, this whole blend of old school craftsmanship and cutting edge tech.
Right.
But let's talk about the skills you actually need to make it in this world. The source material mentions a bunch, but were there any that really jumped out at you as essential?
Well, we talked about judgment and communication. Those are huge.
Right.
But when you look at that functions and core abilities section, it's clear that mechanical knowledge is crucial.
Okay, mechanical knowledge.
Yeah.
Now, I'm more of a words person, so forgive me if this is a dumb question.
Sure.
But what does that actually mean in the context of leather goods?
Oh.
Is it about fixing a stitching machine when it breaks down, or is it more about understanding how different machines interact with leather as a material?
You're actually hitting on both of the key aspects there. So yes, you need to understand the machinery.
Okay.
The cutting machines, the stitching machines, maybe even some robotics, depending on how automated things are.
Right.
But you also need to understand how those machines are going to interact with the leather.
Okay.
How strong it is, how much you can stretch, how it responds to different temperatures and pressures.
So it's like being a mechanic, but for leather.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm also seeing a lot of emphasis on engineering and technology skills in general.
Yeah.
What does that look like in leather goods? Are we talking TAD design for handbags or something even more high-tech?
It's a mix, for sure.
Okay.
CAD design is huge, especially
Right.
with 3D modeling becoming more common for prototyping.
Right.
But it goes way beyond that.
Okay.
Think about process optimization, for example. You might use data analytics to keep track of how much material you're using,
Makes sense.
identify bottlenecks in your production, or even anticipate when a machine needs maintenance before it breaks down.
It's like you're fighting inefficiency with data.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I'm noticing some interesting certifications mentioned: Lean Six Sigma, PMP, CMFGE. Are these just resume boosters, or do they actually make a difference in your career?
They're definitely important.
Okay.
Having those certifications tells employers that you don't just know the concepts, you've actually mastered them.
Right.
Like Lean Six Sigma is all about reducing waste and streamlining your processes.
Right.
And that's incredibly valuable in an industry where the cost of materials can make or break you.
Yeah, saving those leather scraps could be the difference between hitting your budget and a very expensive mistake. What about those academic pathways they list?
Yeah.
What's the most straightforward way to get into this field? Straight up industrial engineering, or are there other routes?
Industrial and manufacturing engineering are the most common paths, for sure.
Okay.
Give you that good foundation in optimizing processes, quality control, supply chain management, and all that.
Okay.
But the source mentions some other cool alternatives.
Like what? Give me the inside scoop.
Well, if you're more of an artistic person, a degree in leather technology could be a really interesting option.
Oh, wow.
You'd be learning all about leather as a material,
Okay.
the properties, the tanning process, even the cultural significance.
So you could be the person who not only knows how to make a leather handbag efficiently, but you also understand the history behind the stitching techniques.
Exactly. You'd be a wealth of knowledge.
Let's talk about a unique skill set.
Right?
We keep dancing around this sustainability angle.
It's important.
It's obviously not just a trend at this point. It feels like a fundamental shift in how people think about what they buy.
Absolutely.
But where does an industrial engineer fit into all of this? How do you connect sustainability with optimizing a production line?
Well, it all starts with the materials you choose.
Okay.
An industrial engineer who's focused on sustainability
Right.
might recommend suppliers that use eco-friendly tanning methods or source their hides responsibly.
So you're not just looking for the cheapest leather, you're looking for the leather with the lowest impact.
Yes, and it goes way beyond that.
Okay.
A sustainability-minded engineer might also try to find ways to reduce water and energy usage during production, or even design products that can be easily disassembled and recycled.
So it's about building a more circular economy for leather goods, less waste, and more efficient use of resources.
Exactly. And that's where the real innovation is going to happen,
I like that.
because it's not enough to just make more stuff faster and cheaper.
Right.
The future of manufacturing, especially for something like leather goods, depends on our ability to make things better.
More durable, less wasteful,
Mm.
more sustainable.
All of that.
It's like you said, finding that balance between craftsmanship technology and now sustainability.
It is.
But let's be real for a second.
Okay.
All this talk about ethical sourcing and eco-friendly production is great. But at the end of the day, don't companies mostly just care about their bottom line?
That's the big question, isn't it? And more the answer is that sustainability is becoming a bottom line issue.
Interesting.
Consumers want it. Investors are demanding it. Companies are realizing they can't ignore it.
So it's not just about doing the right thing, it's about staying competitive.
Exactly. Consumers care about where their products come from.
They really do.
And that means that having those sustainability skills can give you a real advantage in the job market.
You're not just an industrial engineer, you're a problem solver. Someone who can help companies adapt to this changing world.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say someone listening is really into this whole sustainability thing, and they want to make it a core part of their career in leather goods.
Good for them.
What advice would you give them? Specific courses, certifications, anything like that?
Absolutely. There are tons of resources out there.
Yep.
You might not find a degree specifically in sustainable leather goods engineering,
Right.
but there are plenty of programs that'll give you the knowledge and the skills you need.
Okay.
Look for courses on things like sustainable manufacturing, life cycle assessment, circular economy principles.
These all sound incredibly relevant.
They are.
And don't forget about networking.
Oh, absolutely.
Conferences, workshops, online forums,
All of it.
especially the ones focused on sustainability in fashion and manufacturing.
Those are gold mines.
Yeah, connecting with people, staying ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
It's like you said before, it's not just about keeping up with the trends, it's about anticipating what's next.
100%.
Okay, so we've covered the what, the where, the how, and even the why of being a leather goods industrial engineer.
We have.
But let's be practical for a moment. What about the money?
Important.
We talked about high demand and how specializing can boost your income.
Right.
But do we have any actual numbers we can look at?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
We don't have any salary databases handy right now,
right.
but there are tons of resources available online.
Oh, for sure.
Websites like Glassdoor, Indeed, Salary.com.
Those are the classics.
They're your best bet for that kind of research.
Because you want to know what the industry standards are, right?
Yep.
The regional differences, even salary ranges for specific companies.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how you go into a negotiation feeling confident and prepared.
Absolutely. You don't want to go in blind.
Right.
Do your research, know what you're worth.
Know your worth.
Exactly.
And speaking of worth, let's not forget about the things that you can't put a price tag on. Because a fulfilling career isn't just about the paycheck.
No, it's not just about the money.
And this is where I think being a leather goods industrial engineer could be really rewarding.
I think so too.
Remember that whole thing we were talking about earlier about making a difference?
Yeah.
You're not just optimizing a production line.
Right.
You're potentially contributing to a more ethical and sustainable industry.
Exactly.
That's got to feel pretty good.
It does.
And let's not forget about the creative side of things.
It's there too.
Working with designers, craftspeople, these beautiful materials,
Mm-hmm.
there's a real art to it.
There is.
It's like you're finding this balance between engineering and art.
I like that.
Finding these elegant solutions that are efficient and indeed,
Cute
way
ones.
to put it. So to wrap this all up for our listener, who's probably even more excited about this whole leather goods industrial engineer thing now,
Hopefully.
what's the one key takeaway you want them to walk away with?
I would say this. It's a field that's full of opportunities.
Okay.
Whether you're passionate about making things more efficient, pioneering sustainable practices, or just being a part of this evolving industry.
It's an exciting time to be involved for sure.
It is a career that offers that unique mix of challenge and creativity.
Yeah, and you get to make a real difference.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, we'll leave everyone with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
As technology keeps advancing and consumer preferences keep changing,
Mm-hmm.
what new innovations and challenges are going to shape the future of leather goods manufacturing?
Now there's something to think about.
It's an exciting time to be at the forefront of this industry,
It really is.
and we can't wait to see what you all do with it.
Good luck out there, everyone.